Okay guys, so I am going to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 colonial knots. I can't stand even numbers, never mind. 11. I'm going to do 11 colonial knots in here. I have to decide how far I want to space this last one. I'll put it right there. Okay, so 11 colonial knots. If you've not ever done a colonial knot before, I will attempt to help. So I'm going to go ahead and use all 6 strands of this, which is black. It's not DMC. It is just 100% cotton 6-strand floss. So I have a pretty big needle eye, and I'm not going to knot this on the back. I'm just going to pull it through. I'll put this in a hoop so you guys can see better. So I'll be holding that on the back right there. Okay. So colonial knot, you start with a backward C from wherever you are working. So if I turn this the other way, I would have to flip this C over. Okay. Okay. So insert the needle on top of this long tail of the C and go underneath the top part of the C. And then take your floss and loop it over so that you have a figure 8. Oh, there we go. Okay. Like this. I'll try to get it where you can actually see. Okay. Sort of snug it up a little bit. I'm going to have to do it again. So on top and under like this, and then loop it so that you have that figure 8 kind of, and then go back down through, but not through the same hole that you came up through, and then just hold the excess, keep a little pressure on it, and there's your colonial knot. Okay. Let's see if I can find one that's going to really show up well. Alright, so remember, don't pull the thread all the way through. Just leave enough that you can tie it. I keep saying thread, but you know what I mean. It's floss. And then if you were doing candle wicking, you would have that white waxed floss. Alright, so make your backward C. That's how I always remember colonial stitch. It's because there's a backward C there. Okay? Lay this down on top of this part, go underneath the top part of the C, and then cross this over and under like that. Kind of pull it out of the way, push your needle through, and then hold on to the excess. And there's the second colonial knot, and again I'm going to tie this off. Okay, so we are done with a little bluebird. I am going to press and remove the friction ink. And we're going to put the Jingle Bells on. Now, this did not come to me in a kit with these flosses, these buttons, or the Jingle Bells. All of this was my basic decision. I followed the color scheme somewhat. These up here are not the correct colors, and I did not do the embroidery that was done on this. I made one X in the middle of each box instead of multiple X's in the middle, or to fill in each of the boxes. I just felt like with all the rest of the open stitches, that's what I wanted my bluebird to look like. And then I thought, you know, he needs some knots to kind of fill in some of this, and colonial knot just seemed like the better alternative for me. So I'm going to press, get rid of all of this excess friction ink, and then I'm going to put a jingle bell, and a jingle bell. But keep in mind that if you have one of these patterns, there is no mention of jingle bells. This is my addition. So I had absolutely forgotten, but there were two things that I mistakenly drew on this pattern in actual real gel ink. This 0 was one of them. I had forgotten that I did that, and then in the process of design, doing this design, I thought, I don't want to do that 0. Well, I actually need to do the 0 to hide the fact that I drew it in real ink instead of friction ink, which is real ink mixed with a thermosensitive ink. So when you use friction ink, you're actually laying down a little bit of real ink. And when I say real, you know what I mean. Okay, the other spot where that happened, I really can't do anything about it, so I'm just going to let it go. It is under one of the hearts on the lower portion, and I'm just not going to be upset about it. It's one of those things. If someone in the future spots it on my embroidery, well, there you go. I've left them a little gift, a little lanyard. All right. A little something extra. Alrighty. So there's the 0. And I will tie this off. I will show you where the other piece of ink is peeking out, and then I'm going to get busy on the jingle bells. Okay, so here's Bluebird. This is the far right. One across to the left. And right there was supposed to be a heart, and I chose to shift them all to be underneath this little box. And this one is just sitting there. So I'm just going to let that be there. That'll be fine. All right, I'm going to use I'm going to use some thread. I'm not going to use floss. Jingle bells. holly and berries, little hearts. The hearts up here are red and green. Obviously, we've got a Christmas theme going. And then this here is kind of a dark blue. And once I get it framed, I will let you see it. Okay guys, so real quick I'm going to go over the cards and then we're going to start looking at some heirloom sewing. I have several projects that are in the process of being complete as far as what I need to do them, but I don't have all of the elements. So today, as a filler of sorts, we're going to talk about heirloom sewing. I'm going to show you some basic smocking stitches. And even if you have no one that you can smock a garment for, there are many things that you can use smocking for. You could make an apron for yourself. You could make an apron and smock a pocket. You could make a Christmas ornament. It can definitely be used in home dec items. Okay, so they're all done. I've signed all of them, I think. So here's the first one. This is the one we did yesterday. I did this one this morning. Okay, this one again, the idea was from a Painting with Jane tutorial. I did not do this one on camera. It's not my own design. So, I mean, it is my own design because obviously I couldn't paint like Jane for anything, but it's close enough that I want to definitely give her credit for the idea. Okay. And then there's this, and another one. I love wreaths. I love what a wreath, basically symbolizes during the holidays. And I have a snowman, snow tree, not really sure what this is, but I dreamed it up about something like this. It was on somebody's front door. And I got up the next day and said, yeah, I'm gonna paint that. So I did. Okay, we didn't do this one, but this sort of ironic Christmas tree inspired me to do this super ironic Christmas tree. Yeah, it's like 2020 just decided I'm gonna run down. Yep, okay, and then the final wreath is the white and red poinsettia wreath. Okay, those are the cards. They are painted and done. All right, so we're just going to have kind of a little primer to what this is all about. So there's heirloom sewing. It's kind of like the headline. And then underneath heirloom sewing are a whole lot of different techniques and styles of sewing that you might encounter or you might want to try. One of those, under that big heading, is smocking. If you do not have a pleater, there are smocking dots. These iron on to your fabric. You can cut, however many rows you want by however much length you need. So this would be used on like a darker colored fabric. And then I have the blue, I believe. Yeah, these are blue. I used to sell these in my shop for $1 a page, and we'll just see how big a page is. I'm sure you're thinking, well, okay, that's great, but what the heck do you do with a sheet full of iron-on smocking dots? Okay, so this is one sheet right here, and it is, I'm going to say, a little bit over 36 inches. And they are 9 inches. Now, for most babies, you wouldn't use all of this, the full 9 inches. You would just use, maybe 2 inches at most. And then, of course, the length depends on how much you need to draw up of that fabric. Every pattern will tell you that. Okay, now in this box I have some silk floss. So silk floss was one of the most popular smocking flosses that I sold. However, pearl cotton, right here, this was another one. I think this is size 8, yeah. So smocking with one strand of pearl cotton was also very popular when I had my shop. And again, that was over 20 years ago. So I'm pretty sure things have changed. Okay, you can also use the floss that you purchase for embroidery. So this type. No clue. Okay, that is just heirloom sewing. This is an example of shadow embroidery and a feather stitch. I think this was a class I took down in Oklahoma a long time ago. And this is the back of shadow embroidery. That's pretty amazing, huh? And then this could just be trimmed pretty and then inserted in the front, skirt of a little dress, or overall bib, a little boy's outfit. The colors are gender neutral, so all sorts of opportunity there. Okay, and this one is a question mark. I will come to that in a minute. This is a piece of smocked fabric. So as you can see, you have all of these pleats and a lot of thread. This is a piece of batiste. Okay. This is also a piece of batiste, but it is of the finest quality. It is Bare Threads Barissima, and it is amazing. Okay, so this is the front. And again, you just have all these little pleats, and they're just riding on these threads that I applied with my pleater. That's a topic for another day. But there we have this, and they just slip along. Okay. Now this is some DMC blank, I think is the color. Yeah. And it's what I would have used if I were doing white on white in this particular case. And this is what is, oh, here's some floche. Also a lovely embroidery floss. Okay, this is a kit that I used to sell in my shop. It's from the Children's Corner. It was it's called Smock a Stitch Starter Kit, and it's a piece of smocked fabric that came with floss in a certain color, and then attached to the front of your kit is an appropriately sized needle, and then you would open it up and it would kind of tell you some of the stitches and how to practice, what to look for when you're smocking. Okay, so this is it. This is your entire set of instructions, and this is what is called either a smocking design, or if it were printed in color on a half sheet of paper, kind of like this, it would be called a plate, a smocking plate. And you would use that to help you figure out what stitches to do, where to put them, and then it would tell you exactly what to do. So if you've ever crocheted anything, or if you're into knitting, then you know that you're going to have row 1, row 2 instructions, and then these are the rows that run this direction, and it will tell you exactly what you need to do. So there's that kit, and then of course I would stab myself. Why not? Every time. Oh, this is Madeira silk. Madeira silk was an interesting product because you just tear this tab off and you never remove it. It doesn't hang out in this form. It stays in this plastic, and as you need it, you just pull from this top, and it would be threaded through this, and then you just pull it and make sure you left a little bit out, and then that way your silk would stay 100% clean. Before we move on, I wanted to talk about this. I believe I have finally figured this out. If you've been with me on this journey, you might recognize this. I don't know for sure why I started smocking halfway down the middle and did all of this, and then there's nothing on this side. So it was either a split color, so this side would be pink and this side would be blue, or this side would be pink and this side would be a different shade of pink. But it is a bodice. It is nothing other than a front bodice. So it's not like this was supposed to wrap around. This is the front. And I honestly cannot tell you. I don't have a pattern that shows this. I don't remember attending a class. I know I did have a class that I went to, not one that I taught, but one that I actually attended. There was one in Wichita, and then there was another one down in Oklahoma. This might have been the one from Wichita, but and it may be that who knows. I almost feel like the one in Wichita was also white on white. So I don't know. I'm not going to take it out. I'm going to leave it just like it is and try to figure it out. I suppose that is possible. Okay, so the next thing I was going to do is show you the smocking dots. I have, that is broadcloth. I think I will use this small piece of batiste. I don't know if you can tell, but it is pink. It's very pale pink. And the way this works, for the most part, is you take your sheet of smocking dots. I'm going to go ahead and use the yellow since they're open. And I'm going to cut this right down one row, staying on this side over here of the dots, because I don't want to make it uneven. So the next time, if it ever gets used, it will be exactly the way it's supposed to be. So you would put this on the wrong side of the fabric and press it down like so. And that's what I'm going to go do. And then when I come back, I'm going to go ahead and cut this. Oh, this one's already had dots applied. Well, we'll just do it again on the other side. Okay, I'll just cut that off. That's from another class of sorts. I'm using my horrible paper scissors, so excuse all the little choppy noises. Okay. All right, so I am going to go press the dots to the wrong side of my batiste, and then I'll show you what we're going to do when I come back. All right, so I'm going to show you a couple of things about using the smocking dots or pressed dots. I think that's what those were the two names. So you press from either back here or from the front. However, if you slide your iron back and forth, you will get this mess right here. It will come out, but this is the right side of my fabric, and I'm not thrilled about it, but I did it so that you could see. The only way to avoid that really is to put something else down on top of your fabric, like a press cloth, and that will definitely help, but it will come out when it's washed. Okay, so this is the reverse, and as you can see, I think, you know what, let me turn on some light in here. That might help a little bit. It's such a dreary day. Try to get that go through there. Okay, there we go. So those are the dots. Now what do we do with these dots? Okay, you want to take a dark colored thread, one that's going to show up, and it needs to be heavy. So I'm going to use this all-purpose dual duty green. I'm going to thread my needle. I need a needle that I can actually use that will go through the fabric without snagging. It's not too thick, the needle point isn't too fat, and I have control over. You do not want double thread. You want one single layer of thread, and you do want to go ahead and tie a knot that you may or may not need. If you're careful, you won't need the knot. However, you don't want to get all the way to the end and then have this pull through. So go ahead and tie a knot, have a nice long piece of thread, and then stitch. I'm gonna skip the top. Let me get you where you can see what's happening here. also want to put a dark piece of fabric down, so that will help a little bit. So here we go. The way we're going to do this is we're going to work the pleats on the fabric from right to left. So you insert your needle at one dot and bring it up at the next dot and just keep doing that. Now, the most important thing that you can do at this point is keep these stitches absolutely even. Make sure you leave a nice long tail, just like that. Don't tie this end off. Leave it just like it is. And then make a knot in the next piece of thread. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go in just like we did in the first one. And all the way across. Put my needle up there. Okay, so here we have these two rows. Now when I pull on these pleats, because they are identical, the fabric will be pleated. Of course, it's going to need more, obviously, to make it look pleated, but there we go. Alright guys, I'm going to basically start my smocking over. We did this entire row of cable stitches yesterday, and I looked at the video this morning and I didn't like it. So I'm going to redo the video. I'm going to try to keep everything when I'm working in frame so that you guys can see what I'm doing for at least a portion of this. We're going to tie this knot and then we're going to do a cable stitch. I am not going to use this cable stitch as an actual smocked stitch. This one is going to be what is referred to as a holding cable. It's just going to be, if I ever use this, you know, if I decide to put it inside of a panel, it would be hidden underneath the fabric like this. Of course, this would all be pulled out, you know, to about right here or so. It'd be about 1/4 yard of fabric right here instead of this little tiny block that we're smocking. But this is how I would handle the top. So that row of smocking will not be seen. The reason I don't want to do it, the reason I don't want this row to show is because this up here has not been pleated and is all wobbly and wonky, and it's pulling the pleats wobbly and wonky. So we're going to do a row of up cable, and we're going to do it on row number 2. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is tie off on the back. And the way we do that is we're going to come up through the same valley that we came up on this first row. We're going to do the exact same thing, but we're doing it on the second row. So I'm going to push my needle up from the back through the valley. And of course on the back, that valley is actually a peak. So it makes it easier to tie my knot. Alright, so So I'm going to pull it through to about here, and then I'm going to come back through like so in a different spot but close to where I entered the valley. Alright, now I'm on top of that peak. Right there. Now I am going to take my needle and I'm going to take a little bite in that peak with my needle held in the same direction as my thread, my orange thread is going. Okay, so I'm going to now pull this thread like so one time, and I'm not pulling it tight, I'm just looping it. Now I'm going to loop over again, and I'm going to do the same thing like so and pull just like that. Okay, now I can kind of pull on both this small tail and this attached to my needle tail just a little bit, and if I want to I can make a knot. I can tie these into a knot. I don't really want that bulk on the back of my smocking, so I'm not going to do that. I feel like this would probably stay. I'm not going to be, now if I were doing a baby outfit, something that's going to get washed multiple times, then absolutely I would tie a knot. But for a home deck piece, no, I'm not. So that, I'm going to leave that up to you. And I would suggest, if you do decide that you want to tie a knot, leave this tail a little bit longer. So you would need to cut your floss a little bit longer as well. Okay, so now I'm going to, for myself, I'm going to trim this little tail off. I don't need extra stuff hanging around on the back. I'm going to go right back through the peak that I came up from. So that also helps to lock your stitches in place. And you should be coming up right in that valley. You don't want to pull on the peak. Sometimes your needle will kind of go wonky. So just manipulate it so that you're coming right back up through that valley on the front side of your smocking. And then just pull your thread through. So you should have something that looks like this right here, if that's focused. Okay. Ish, maybe. There we go. Okay. All right. So your first stitch will be to the right of the knot that you just created. And remember to keep your needle horizontal all the way across. Okay? The thread is supposed to be above your needle, like so. And then you're going to take one little bite out of that first pleat, like that, with your thread above the needle. So pull this, and it's naturally going to want to be down. So just in the famous little story told by Martha Pullen, it's like a little cat running down the stairs at the courthouse. The tail is going to be behind the cat. Alright, now we're going to go back up. So the tail is now going to be behind the cat, meaning it's going to be up and we're going up. So we're going to grab another bite of the next pleat with our thread up above, like so. And we're going to pull this through, and it's just naturally going to want to kind of hang down. So we're going to pull it back up and take another bite. And we're going to do that all the way across every single stitch that we take. Those are called up cables. So just keep your needle absolutely horizontal, and you can use that orange or whatever color your pleating thread is as your guide. You're just going to keep your needle right level with that, and make sure that every single time you put your thread or your floss right back up again before you take a stitch. Ow. Okay, so every single one. And you don't want to move your needle above or below that smocking thread. That's basically your guide. So just keep your needle. I'll pull these apart so that you can see the orange. So there's the orange thread, and my needle is just kind of going along with. And of course, like I said before yesterday when I was doing this, you're just taking about a third of that top pleat, the top part of that pleat. You don't want to, stitch. You don't want to take a stitch too far down in there. It won't look good. And eventually you'll establish a nice little rhythm where you're just pulling your thread up, taking another stitch, pulling your thread up, taking another stitch. My needle wants to come unthreaded. I'm trying to make sure that I am letting you guys see. So let me get my hand out of the way. Alright, so there's that. So every single one of these stitches I have taken with my thread above my needle. So here we go. My thread is above. I'm just going to pull this through. The thread wants to naturally go down, so I'm going to turn around and push it right back up. Take another little bite, like so. About a third. Right, so as you can see, I've got loops from doing the smocking. I'm just going to lift this up over, let this drop, and the needle will just kind of spin, and now it's free of all those twists. So I'm doing up cable, and I'm going to take a bite. Now let's just say that you had put your smocking aside and you're relatively new, and you're like, oh, was I doing up cables or down cables? If you are working from memory and you don't have a smocking plate, of course you can just make yourself some notes. First row up cable all the way across, second row trellis, third row stem stitch. You don't actually have to have a actual pattern. They're fun. They really are fun. They kind of help keep you focused. It's like little pieces of artwork. I'll get one in a minute and show you what I'm talking about. But anyway, the way you can figure it out is to examine your stitch. If I left it like this, I would know immediately that I'm doing up cable, because the cat's tail is running down and the tail is pointing up, which means, I know that might be confusing, but eventually these little helps will make sense. It means that I'm doing an up cable and I have to lift this up to get the cat running back up the courthouse steps. So I'm going to put the tail up here. And that's how I know I am doing up cable. And when you're doing a down cable, it will be absolutely the opposite of this. Okay? Alright. So I'm going to go get you a smocking plate that you can look at and see what I'm talking about as far as the pretty little visuals that a smocking plate has as opposed to a design. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay. So this is the type of book that I keep my smocking plates in. And even when I had my shop, if I didn't have them in a Ziploc bag, I would put them in something like this, and then my customers could just open the book and look through. And if they wanted, you know, let's say they wanted this one, I might have 4 or 5 copies in here, and they could pull this out and take whichever copy they wanted. If I didn't put them in, all of them in one sleeve, they could just say, oh, I want Kendra's Bishop, and I would go pull it from my filing cabinet. So I'm going to find one that is particularly, a lot of these were photocopies so that the my clients could tell me I need strawberry shortcake, and this was just my copy, and then I would run get it out of the filing cabinet. But I'm going to find a really pretty one. Ooh. Little Gretchen's Critters are, this one is really cute. I would say this one is cute, and some of them are beautiful. So this would be for a full little bodice, and you would do as much as you wanted. But let me get you backed up. This is how big it is, and as you can see, we have little bunny rabbits, we have little fish, we have little ducks, we have kitty cats, and then on the back is how to do it. So this is your design, and it tells you how to create the stitches that will provide you with these adorable little critters. Okay. Very, very popular for, say, an Easter dress or a little boy outfit. Okay. Don't do. Okay. That one's so pretty. Yeah, most of these I may not have. Oh, here's one. Okay, here's buttercream. Now these are great. This one right here is great for a beginner because it is, you get 3 different styles. You can add little flowers. It shows you how to do a double, like right, let me get my, I don't know if you can tell, but this right here is a double row. So there's the blue, and then there's a little pale cream color on top. And then this one is green, and then underneath it is that pale cream color. And then right across the top, you've got 2 rows. And then this one you've got the 2, and then there's little flowers. And this one is a lot closer. These little waves are closer and a little bit more nautical looking. And so that's those options, and this is the entire plate right here. So you could fold this up, and that's as big as it is. Here's a pretty one. Oh, this is one of my favorites right here. Okay, so this is one of those plates where this is it. This is all, the entire design. As you can see, the other side is blank. Maybe you can see. So this is it. The entire back side is blank. Alright, so there's your first. There, I don't know if you can see, there's a very pale blue color. Then you've got these darling little roses, which I will show you how to do. Then we have this bow. This is a stem with these beautiful flowers, more smocking, and then you do this ribbon insertion, which really adds a massive pop to something that is smocked. That would be so pretty on a little girl's dress. And then these are the instructions, and it will tell you, you're wondering how to get the ribbon in there, you will have to cut your fabric. And fortunately for us, Ellen McCarn has said, read before cutting. And then it explains how to cut these openings for the ribbon to run through and what you will need to do in order to make sure that they stay secure. Alright, and then we also have this beautiful Buds and Bows, and this one is Little Memories. Little Memories was also a very popular smocking plate designer, and as you can see, she has got this pretty pink fabric, and then she has smocked, so it's kind of a tone on tone with the pink, and then she's got these gorgeous overlapping bows. And you open up her plate, and I think all types of Little Memory plates were like this, whether it was smocking, duplicate stitch, counter change, whatever, you know, picture smocking, whatever she did, this was the way it would be, this is the way it would come to you. And you would also have information on the back. So there's that plate. You have your color code, you've got everything lined out. It's one of my favorite companies. I loved selling them. They went like hotcakes. This Allison plate I did, I don't know how many times. I also taught this one. It's really pretty. I don't know if you can see it. And Faith, Hope, and Charity was very, very, very popular in Kansas. It's a wonderful needle art with so many opportunities and different things that you can do. Those are really simple and easy. This one is a very heavily smocked. It is so pretty. It's another Ellen McCarn. I don't even know if on, you know, if you can really pick up the elegance on film, but look at that. Isn't that pretty? Ooh, that's Micah Amy. Oh, this one. See, we could just drool over these all day. Look at this. Isn't that beautiful? Linda Silver Needle. Just beautiful. Very heavily embroidered hearts. Love it. Oh, this is really cute. This is Little Memories. And this was kind of the direction that Little Memories was going. And how popular would this be today? I mean, I think this was actually, I wonder if they're stamped, if they're dated. I don't know. I do not know if these are dated, but it would have been, you know, early 2000s at the latest. It was probably more like in the, you know, mid to late 90s when this was designed. And how precious is that? That is so cute. And I think, yeah, these are stacked cables right here for the center part of your sunflowers. And these are stacked cables up here for your black and white buffalo check. I mean, it's just precious. I love it. And again, see, wouldn't that be a pretty little pillow? Or even like the top part of a kitchen curtain. I mean, how cute would that be? And then we have the Christmas. Christmas is just, there's so many of these. Hundreds and hundreds of smocking plates with Christmas themes. Little elves, little Santas. They're just darling. I remember when my girls were tiny, my mother actually made each one of them a Christmas. I don't know if it was this one in particular, because she used to smock for so many people in North Carolina. She had many, many plates, and she would take a plate that was basically, this is pretty, you know, one color, and then she would change the colors and make it into a beautiful Christmas plate. This one right here is the very first thing that my mother learned how to smock right here. It's called Strawberries. It is an Ellen McCarn plate that's dated 1982, and my mother lived south of Vestavia Hills in Alabama, which is where we lived. My husband and I lived at the time. And so she would have to drive all the way from about halfway between Birmingham and Montgomery on I-65, and she would drive up and go to a place in River Chase, which is a little south of Hoover, and she would take a class, and this was her very, very, very first learning how to smock. And I didn't have any children. There were no grandchildren at that point. She made herself a beautiful bishop style, gorgeous nightgown, long, flowing, beautiful, smocked with that strawberry pattern right there. And that nightgown that she made for herself is why I started smocking and why I eventually ended up having my own shop. So there you go, the story of Lace Heirloom Sewing Shop. Okay, so I wanted to show you those, and we're gonna quickly review the, oops, sorry, the stick is getting in the way. We're gonna do one or two more of our up cable stitches here as we go. So we know we're doing up because it is naturally laying down, so I've got to pull it up above and then just take a small little bite out of that pleat right there, push it, pull my thread, my floss up to the top, push that. I always just take my needle and push that one that I just did out of the way. So I'm just going to push that, hold it down with my thumb, and then line my needle up with that orange thread and come across, kind of pull a little bit and pull my thread up, push these out of the way, and grab onto that next unstitched pleat. And pull it down like that. Okay, I'm hoping that this video is easier to see, better for you guys. Like I said, the first one I did was so awful. I can't even. I'm just going to cut it all out and put this in its place, and we're going to move forward with our How to Smock Pleated Fabric series. Alright. Okay guys, well I hope that you're enjoying our little foray into smocking. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. You can drop a comment below the description box underneath this video. Today is Wednesday, November 25th of 2020. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving Day, and I do hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving in spite of the current timeline. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. Please hit the thumbs up if you liked this video, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.